Hello class. Today I want to show you how to actually set up Visual Studio Code with P5.js. So if you head to p5js.org, you will find that on this very cool website there's a lot of documentation, and there is also an editor that allows you to try the code directly online. This is very convenient, but I'm not particularly encouraging you to use this editor online. Both because we are already used to Visual Studio Code through this course, and partially also because you have to be online to use it. So what we want to do today is to set up Visual Studio Code to work with P5.js. And to do that, we have to do a couple of steps. They're very, very simple. The first thing is you want to get a template file from online that I made for you. You can get this from GitHub, and I will put in the description of the video below this link. So you go to this repository online and you want to clone this repository on your computer. Of course, you also have the option of just downloading a zip file and then extract the zip file and go on with the tutorial. Or, as we do in this class, we just get this URL here, and then I'm going to open up a GitHub client, or in my particular case, I'm going to use the command line, and I'm going to clone the repository in a particular folder. In my case, I'm cloning it over here on the desktop. Okay, so you can use anything, like you can use GitHub desktop or GitKraken, whatever you like to. I'm just using this for simplicity. Okay. All right, so I got my template file and I'm dragging inside the Visual Studio Code, and we are almost ready to get started. But before I do so, actually, let me show you very briefly what's inside of this folder. So inside of this folder, you will find there is a couple of folders that I'm going to explain you later what they do, an index HTML file and some JS files. So let's open this index.html file. And what it does, it opens it in my browser, and you will find there is a couple of links to go to a single sketch and a multi-sketch. A single sketch, just a single P5.js sketch in your browser window, right? And then multi-sketch, what it does, it's taking two sketches, one on the top of the other one. And there are two independent sketches that are running over here on the same page. Most of the time, you're just going to use the single sketch, but sometimes multi-sketch can to be very convenient. Now, this template has both. Okay, so let's get started with this. What I want to do is, the first thing I want to do is I want to download a plugin. That plugin is called Live Server. So you go to Live Server plugin and then you install it. In my case, it's already installed, so I can only disable it or uninstall it. In your case, you just install it. Once you have installed it, open up your files, and down here you can see there is written Go Live. Just click on that. And this one will start the server for you. What does it mean? It will point our browser at this address, 127.0.0.1. This is the localhost. Okay, this is my own machine, right? This is the address of my machine, localhost. And then there is a colon over here and a port. And the port that is 5500, it's the port that we are using for this particular server over here. So I could actually even open up another browser. In this case, for example, I open up Safari. And as long as I point to the same address, I can see exactly the same thing, okay? So it doesn't matter if it is open up for you or you just input it manually. It doesn't matter, as long as you know that is your localhost 5500. You can also write down simply localhost, and that's exactly the same thing, okay? Now, this page here is index.html. This page does nothing. This page really is just showing you two links, okay? So just for navigation purposes. The real thing happened in this pair of files, single sketch.html and single sketch.js, referring for this, and multisketch.html, multisketch.js. Let's start from single sketch.html. So I can open up this, and I can see just a very simple sketch. And if I open up single sketch.html, what it does, it's simply loading up the script for me. So it's loading up the script for me. That's pretty much it. is also loading up a CSS file, but this is really optional. The single sketch.js looks extremely familiar to processing, right? So it's just a function setup, function draw, and then inside here you pretty much have the same functions you have been using in processing all the time. There's really nothing really new, except for this create canvas that substitute size, but it does exactly the same thing. Like for example, I can make the size a little bit bigger. Now what you notice is that as soon as I save this file, this is refreshed immediately, and that is thanks to this live server, okay? So if I go, for example, over here and I choose to have the red color as background and I save, this becomes immediately red. So it's extremely convenient. What you can also do is create your own functions, and we will learn in class how to use JavaScript, but simply function and then do something, and then I'm just going to print something, print hello. Just please notice that print will work, print ln, print line will not work. So print will work though. And now if I call this do something and I call it, say, inside of the draw, right? And I save, I'm actually printing hello. Now you don't see absolutely anything. That is because you have to open up the console. The console is a little bit hidden. It's what is called a developer tool. And you can reach that from different menu that usually you have. Let's see if I remember. Developer tools over here. Developer tool, which as a convention happens to be on the Mac, Alt, Command, I. And I believe it's Control Alt I on Windows, but pretty much the developer tools, it's the window you want to have. Then you have to point it to console, and over here you will see hello, because we are printing out hello. We are actually printing at every execution of this loop, but we only see hello printed once, and then there is a counter over here that is indicating that we are actually printing this really, really quickly, but conveniently it doesn't show the text, it just counted. If I go here and I put a space, for example, and put the current time in millisecond and I save it, the behavior will be different. You can see that is actually keep adding hello, and there's different instances added in. They cannot be compacted in a single line with a counter because each one of these is different. Right, so how to use the console is a little bit beyond this tutorial, so I'm not going to show it now. What I'm trying to say is these behave exactly as you're already familiar with. One last thing I want to mention is that if you want to print, you can use print. Again, you cannot use print ln, but you can also use simple JavaScript. Console.log does exactly the same thing of print. This is exactly the same command, right? And every time you save, it's going to be refreshed immediately. And if you have an error, it will appear in the console. In this case, I'm calling a function that does not exist. If I open up actually the developer tool, you will see that there is an error. Okay? If I remove this, save, no error. This is refreshing correctly. Perfect. Okay? So you can experiment with this, no problem. Now let's see the other one. The other one is the multi-sketch. Multi-sketch allows you to create independent sketches on the same page, but you cannot use this syntax. Instead, what you have to do is a little bit different. So let's walk through. If you open up multisketch.html, you will find that there is again an HTML page that load up the script, the CSS file, and all of these are basically the libraries that you actually are loading up. And in the body, there are two containers, two div. One is called 1 and the other one is called 2. So this is 1, this div is 1, and this one is called 2, okay? In multisketch.js, if I open it up, what I will find is that I have one sketch and the second sketch. The first sketch, what is it doing? Is creating a new P5 and putting the code that belongs to the sketch associated with the div named 1. This is the div named 1 according to the HTML file. So this one div gets this code, and the 2 div gets this code. Now, this code might look a little bit strange because we don't have written down here function setup, function draw, but this is exactly the same thing. The syntax changes a little bit, but the commands pretty much are the same. So if you look over here, what we're doing is we're taking this object P, and we have P setup, and this is the code that is going to happen, and P draw, and this is the code that's going to happen. And every command we know already is just preceded by this P dot. Now, this P, it's my choice of name. This is my parameter. So doesn't have to be P. If I want to call this one, I don't know, processing, let me call it PORC, then I just have to make sure that this is not P dot, but the PORC dot. And that's doing exactly the same thing. The reason why I left P is just because we use it so many times that you want to type it continuously, so I leave it like a P. But this works exactly as before. So if I go here, for example, I change the background to be again red, and I save it, this one becomes red. And if I want this one down here to change, I don't know, the color of the ball that is pointed to the mouse, I want to change that one to be that one in red. There we go, this one becomes red. So it's immediately updating when I save. Both of them are immediately updating. Now you might wonder when to use this particular case or when to use the other case, the single sketch. So most of the time you might just use a single sketch. But if you want to have multiple sketches or multiple, I don't know, independent pieces of code running on the same page, this is the syntax you have to use. This is also allows you to really customize where this code will appear and how it will appear. So you have much more finer control. Now, let's say I also want to change the size of this. Now, of course, I could go here and change the size of the canvas, but I can also use another method. In this particular case here, what I'm saying is take the size of my div1, the width, and use that one for the canvas. So what I can do is change the size of my div. How can I change the size of my div? So now my div1 has an ID, and this is CSS code. So if I go to CSS folder, style.css, you will find I have two selectors here, two ID. One is called 1 and the other one is called 2. And I can go, for example, and change the size of this div number 1. I'm going to change it to become 400 by 300. Now, as soon as I save, really nothing really happened. Something strange actually happened. It doesn't refresh very well for some reason. So just select and refresh the page and you'll get it, right? So now everything is working perfectly. And I can accommodate any kind of size, and everything will work out straight out of the box. So I can do also any other adjustment I want to the CSS code, but you're not really required to do so. All right, so there are a couple of extra things I want to mention. So kind of like a recap. So the CSS folder contains the style.css. So basically your 1 and 2 IDs plus other things for basically padding and margins and stuff like that. Your JS folder contains the JavaScript code for P5.js. You don't have to touch this. That's the source code. Leave it there. It's just there because we have to include it. And for recap again, your index.html, that's the place where the server will point you at first, and that is this page. It only contains 2 links. Each one of these 2 is a pair of HTML and JS file. You go and modify these 2. One last thing I want to really mention is that you can stop the server by clicking down here, and now this is going to be disposing. So this page here is actually not running anymore on a server. If I refresh, you cannot find it anymore. You cannot reach it anymore. If I want to restart it, go live, this will, of course, restart a new page, but also the previous one, if I refresh it, will work. So you can have as many windows open as you want with this page, and you can refresh them. You can actually have one for these and one for that, and update them in real time. This is pretty much it. So I hope this is helpful as a tutorial, and I hope also this code here, it's a very simple kickstart for you to get started with P5.js. Please consider liking the video if you like it, and then I'll see you in class.